Gum chewing GameCube. Nintendo GameCube Ramble here today. Following in the line of the original Xbox and the Nintendo 64. I don't think I ever did GameCube in the past. I know I've done PS2. And I've done 360 on top of the other two that I did recently. The other last week I've done those as well. So this one's new. I do not own a GameCube anymore. I haven't had a GameCube since the last GameCube I got it would have been garage sale pickup back in 2018. I had that one for a little bit, and I believe I sold it. I would have sold it. That's a great deal. I want to say that was $20 for the cube. A couple of memory cards, controller. Simpsons Hit and Run was in there. Batten Kato's was in there. There's a Bad Boys game in there. Resident Evil 0, it was in there. And there might have been one other game. I think it was 20. Maybe it was 15. I'd have to go back and look. But anyway. I can play the GameCube through the Wii. That's what's nice about the Wii is it's a GameCube as well, right? So I do have a controller here. Official Nintendo controller for some button sounds. I'll talk about the controller real quickly here before I move into the thing. Another interesting kind of shaped controller by Nintendo. There's another one I didn't mind. Got the Eleanor up here. The Z button. Which is originally underneath for the Nintendo 64. Y, X, A, and B here, all different shapes and sizes. You have the C stick, which is with the camera, so you do technically have two thumbsticks here, but... And the placement's fine. And the D-pad is a little tiny compared to the other consoles. It's a very small D-pad. Not a bad controller, I never minded it. I never minded this controller. Solid one. It had plenty of accessories, like the GameCube mic. Everybody loves it. This came actually with that lot, I believe, when I got the GameCube in 2018. I want to say this was in there. So, perfect for ASMR. Great sound. Can be used in robot repairs and other role plays. I'll go back to these in a few minutes, and we'll talk about the system itself and my experience with the console. I've owned a lot of GameCubes over the years. I got my first one this day after launch. I remember I went up to Toys R Us with my friend. He got his on the launch day. There was a little bit of a line in the store, not outside, to get the thing. It wasn't, at least in my area, which is a pretty big area when I was in Massapequa, in New York. There's a lot of people. And the Xbox, I believe, came out on the same day. I'm trying to remember, like, being there. If more people buying the Xbox or the Cube. The PS2 had already been out a year. And it was doing its thing. It was selling through the roof. People were probably buying that fucking too. But he had picked it up, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna get it. I ended up getting it the next day. Took some money out of the bank. Because the Cube's only $200 when it came out. It's a hell of a deal. The problem was, within like 3 or 4 months, PS2 dropped their price from 3 to 2, forcing Xbox to do the same. I mentioned this in my Xbox video, and we'll talk about it again. But I ended up paying 3 for the Xbox and then got it for 2 because Toys R Us honored because it was within a month of the price drop. They honored it, which was nice. But the Cube was all of a sudden screwed because the Xbox just had a kind of file suit, kind of got screwed too. More on the money tip. Because, yeah, I'm pretty sure the original Xbox outsold the GameCube. The GameCube did not sell well. All of a sudden, the Cube's $200. They lose it. All of a sudden, they lose that advantage they have. I mean, the PS2, whatever the price was going to sell through the roof. They didn't even have to do that. I feel like they're just like, screw this. Like a year, within a year, they lower the price. Now, they must have already sold pretty well at that point. So were they like, fuck this. These two systems are not going to have a chance. We're going to destroy the Cube's advantage and force the Xbox to drop its price. I mean, the PS2 is just slaughtering the competition. Right? But anyway, I picked it up the next day. Memory card. I had gotten... The first game I actually got with it was Madden 02. I was still into, the football games. And I liked it, but I was like, why did I get this? So I went back and got the next day and picked up Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. I do have Rogue Squadron 3 here, Rebel Strike. But I went back and got that. I mean, I still like Madden and played it, but I was like, I should have just gotten Rebel Strike and kind of skipped Madden. I could have gotten Luigi's Mansion instead. That was a launch title. Rogue Squadron 2 was a launch title. The sport games, Tony Hawk 3. I don't know what else was the launch title for the Cube, to be honest with you. There was others. I don't think... Wave Race did come out in 01. I'm not sure if it was a launch title. It very well might have been. But it would have come out very soon after, because I think the Cube and the Xbox came out in November of 01 or October, so it wouldn't have been long. This very well might have been a launch title. I only rented this when I was younger. I bought this one at an antique collector's mall. $15 complete, not a bad deal. It does work. Great disc rattle there. But there's the little only 4. It's also one. The Rogue Squadron games were exclusive. My fiance has some games. I would have shown these at a point. They're in a binder. She threw out the cases when I first met her. She's like, oh, I have games in this thing. I was like, where are the cases? Where are the damn cases? She has the manuals and the games, but she has Mario Sunshine, Animal Crossing, a Crash Bandicoot game, a Sonic Collection, I believe. I forget what. Mario Party, and I think there's like one other game in there. But I don't have like none of these are my original games. But I got it. I loved Rogue Leader. I played a lot of Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. Played a bunch of... Because that game, real quickly, that game looked incredible. When I first played, and it still looks good now. When I first played Rogue Leader, I was like, holy shit. This game looks incredible. It's like playing the fucking movies, right? This one added on foot missions. The first 2 did not have on foot missions. This added on foot missions and still has the aerial combat. But like I said, I got Luigi's Mansion. I shouldn't say I picked it up. I rented Luigi's Mansion and enjoyed it. I heard it was short. I never completed it. I don't think. But I was like, more like, oh, it's not a Mario. I'm not interested, right? Kind of didn't give it a fair shake out of the gate. But like I said, I eventually played it, but I don't think I ever completed it. Another game that looked great. The Cube was a little square. People call it a lunchbox. It had a handle on the back. It had a spot on the bottom to set up the GBA player so you could play GBA games through the TV, and it had other ports. I can't remember what everything it did. It did have 4 controller ports, though. And they were the little discs, so it did not play CDs or DVDs, so that was a disadvantage too, but they still made money on that console even though it didn't sell well, because I'm pretty sure they made money because it did not cost a lot to make. So they didn't, and they probably weren't overly producing after that first initial run, because I feel like out of the gate the thing wasn't selling well enough, so they probably didn't produce a shit ton of them either. But I had that one. Out of the gate, like I said, I had those 2 games, Madden, Rogue Leader. I ended up getting Agent Under Fire 007. Played that on there. A game called Dark Summit, which was that was on every system, I believe. Oh, so was Agent Under Fire. It was a snowboard combat game. It wasn't that bad, actually. think pretty sure you had guns and stuff. You're doing like missions while on a snowboard. Bloody Roar Primal Fury. So another one I think that might have been exclusive. It's a fighting game. It was fun. I'm not super into fighting games, but I wanted something for the system. And then Super Smash Bros. Came out, I believe, in December of 01, maybe January of 02. I ended up picking that up and enjoyed it. It's another fighting game, up to 4 players, I believe. Super Smash Bros. Melee, right? Yeah, another game that looked fantastic, and also had like a little single player mode, which was kind of cool. And then that's when their game started getting delayed, and they didn't have a strong third-party support as well. Like they got the Prince of Persia's. Surprisingly, they got Blood Omen 2, which was kind of surprising. And they didn't have GTA's, Silent Hills, Fatal Frames. They had Resident Evil, the remake of the first one, 0. 4 was a timed exclusive before it came to PS2, and then they released all the other ones, re-released like Code Veronica X, which was the PS2 one as well. The original just Code Veronica came out on Dreamcast first. And they released like 2, 3. Those copies are like super expensive now. They might have sold them when they came out at like $30. Maybe even 20, I don't know. I don't think they came out at 50, those ones. They might have though, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they did. But stuff started getting delayed. I want to say Star Fox Adventures got delayed. Eternal Darkness got delayed. Resident Evil Remake came out in May of 02. I believe that never got delayed. I pre-ordered that. I remember going up there and getting it, but I was getting annoyed. Like I said in the previous video, well, multiple times probably, I picked up a Dreamcast in January of 02. Because there wasn't enough I wanted for the Cube at that point. Because stuff was getting delayed that I wanted. I eventually played Star Fox Adventures later on when I picked up another Cube. But Resident Evil Remake, I got fucking fantastic. That game was like mind-blowing. Jaw-dropping, like graphically, and it's still, in my opinion. I know it's been re-released on newer consoles, well, even Xbox One, I think it started, and the PS4. But that game still looks great. It has the static background images. Looks really nice. The character models still hold up. Fantastic remake. Loved it. It was fucking awesome. Eternal Darkness does end up coming out, I want to say, in maybe July of 02. Played that one as well. Another awesome horror game. That was the one where it messed with you. Like, I remember playing, all of a sudden, it looks like the TV volume's going down. I'm like, what the hell? I didn't touch the controller. And it makes it seem like it's freezing and stuff. It did all that stuff to mess with you, play into the sanity part of it. Cool game where you're going to like different time periods and stuff. Cool horror game. It was made by Silicon Knights, who I think were a second-party developer for Cube at that point. They are no longer. They also did the Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes, which I believe was a remake of the first Metal Gear Solid. They did the first Blood Omen game, actually, on the PS1. And then they made Two Human for, I guess, it was exclusive to the Xbox 360. But that was supposed to be a Cube game. And it was supposed to be completely different. I remember they were talking about that for a while. And they were like, it was supposed to be like, the game ended on how, like, human you still were at the end. I think you were like a cop or some shit. It was like I can't remember. It was not what it ended up being, I'm pretty sure. And I might have had Simpsons Road Rage I also played. That was another one I got early on for the Cube. I played that one. I got Simpsons Road Rage over this when I was choosing, because I did not get Simpsons. I think it's Simpsons Road Rage might have came out in 01 too, but I got it in 02. Early 02. I was choosing between two and I got that one. I love that game. It's a crazy taxi clone with the Simpsons. It's glitches, but cool. This would have been cool too, though. And they all have the little slot for the memory card, such as the PS2 cases. Xbox did not. Xbox had a memory card, but I thought hard drive built in, so it didn't matter. But they got third-party stuff like Lord of the Rings games and the Potter games. These are the other games I can show. This is a Tiger Woods game over there as well. And here's the player's choice. Just this. Not as good as the... And on the side. Not as good as the Xbox One or the PS2 had the red, I believe. Xbox had the best one, the Platinum hits. There's the best of the hits ones. They did get some third-party stuff. These both came from garage sales. This one I think was $2 and change, because I think I got a bunch of shit for $30. I believe. I think it was 11 games for $30, so it's a little. And this one was like 75 cents at a garage sale. I had gotten a copy of the Scoob Night of 100 Frights with a Cube at that same garage sale, and a Sly Cooper game, and something else. There was one other game, Spider-Man, some shit. They got some third-party stuff, like I said, the Prince of Persia's. Like I said, there was no GTAs, there was no Silent Hills. They had the Resident Evils, and they did get Eternal Darkness in a game called Geist, which was exclusive, where you could possess all types of different shit. It was like puzzle type. Use it as kind of a puzzle to get past stuff and guards and shit. What other third-party stuff did they get? They got plenty of other third-party stuff, but not as much. They didn't get Mercenaries, I'm pretty sure. They ended up getting Dead to Rights. They got the Bond games. They had all the Bonds that came out during that era. There was enough there, but with Nintendo, I think, as always, like, they got Star Fox Adventures, which was Rare's last game published for the Cube. They ended up making a DS game. I think Diddy Kong Racing DS later. I guess through some kind of deal, because Microsoft bought them for like $400 million at the time. I think that hurt Cube overall, because they're losing out and stuff. I like Star Fox Adventures. It was mostly on foot. It was supposed to be another kind of game that Rare was making, but then they just turned it to Star Fox. So it was like a Zelda-type game, but it also had the space combat. Not a lot of it, but it was there. I still liked it. But Rare could have made some other stuff on there, but they would have gotten more Banjo-Kazooies and shit. Some of the stuff that ended up on Xbox systems, but Rare is kind of not anything what it used to be. They had a great run on 360. They had fucking, they just made Grave by the Ghoulies, and underrated game in my opinion for the original Xbox, and the Conquer remake was on Xbox. And then they moved into the 360 had Perfect Dark Zero, Cameo Elements, Power, Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts, the 2 Viva Pinata games. I like all these games too, by the way. They make another one too? Or was it just those? There might have been one other game. Then they moved into like Connect Sports. That might have been the other game. And then they kind of... Sea of Thieves, I know they've made somewhat recently. But I feel like Rare isn't what they used to be. They probably have none of the employees that were there from years ago. But... you were there. When you get a Nintendo console, you typically are looking for the exclusives. You got your Luigi's Mansion, you got Mario Sunshine, which I need to try to replay again, or just play again. I tried playing that thing 2 times over the years, and I can never get into it for more than a few hours. I don't know why. I need to try again. They got Wind Waker, which I loved. That was one that I played. Now, my experience with the Cube is, I sold that GameCube in July, or August, I think it was, of 01. I picked up another one for like Wind Waker, I believe, to play Wind Waker. Then I had another one when I had F-Zero, because eventually this thing was $100. Which is a steal. I got one from GameStop in like 05 for $100, and it came with 2 games. I ended up getting F-Zero GX, and it might have been another copy of Wind Waker, or it might have been something else. They got Twilight Princess at the launch of the Wii. The GameCube copy is more expensive now. I liked Wind Waker. People were losing their shit about the art style work. At first, a lot of people like it now. I loved Wind Waker. Graphically, that still holds up. Nintendo has a lot of like good art style in their games that hold up over time. Like I said, I couldn't get into Mario Sunshine. Never played the Mario parties. I was never into them. Star Wars Bounty Hunter was on the Cube and the PS2, but not the Xbox. And they got a bunch of Star Wars games as well, GameCube. There was enough third-party stuff there. But if you want a lot of the mature shit, it wasn't there. But you're looking for the exclusives. The ones I've said, Star Fox Assault was more of a traditional Star Fox game. The Pikmins started on the Cube. The first 2 Pikmins were on the Cube. I'm trying to think of other ones I had back in the day. I'm looking over at the Wii U to try to see other franchises that might have been there. You had the Animal Crossing started on the Cube, right? That was first ones on the Cube. So you were always looking for the exclusive stuff. They got the Super Smash Brothers, which started on the Nintendo 64, but they had Melee. They got Gun, which was an exclusive. They got the Tony Hawks. They would have gotten like Need for Speeds and stuff. Like I said, there was enough there. They got Gladius. They did get Gladius. But I feel like if you were looking for like certain things, I'm trying to think of like other known ones that weren't there. Like the Medal of Honors were there as well. I don't think those Call of Duties that came out for the Xbox and the PS2 were on the Cube. They didn't. No, they got Buffy Chaos Bleeds, I believe. They did actually end up getting that. I think that was on the Cube as well. They did get the Scoobs. Now I'm like, wait, they did get these amount of third-party stuff. But they didn't get like State of Emergency wasn't there. The Max Paynes were not there, although the Max Paynes came to the PS2 but were not nearly as good as the Xbox versions. And the PC versions would have been the best. But the Xbox did a decent enough job of mimicking the PC, not fully, but much better than the PS2 could do. So they didn't get those either. I'm looking at the PS2. They did get Smuggler's Run Warzones, which is an exclusive. Although I think it was the same thing as Smuggler's Run 2, Hostile Territory on the PS2, but just some different stuff. So it's not like it's exclusive. There was no Manhunt. Manhunt was definitely not on the Cube. I did come to the Xbox as well, though. But the Cube had good stuff, but for me personally, I needed more. That's why, for me, the Cube would be the perfect complement system to either the Xbox or the PS2. And you have Wave Race, which is another exclusive, obviously. I think there was just one. There was Donkey Kong. Like, they had the bongos, I think, as another attachment. Like the Wii mic. This was used for Odama. And you might have had to use this for one of those. They made Donkey Kong's Jungle Beat. And I think they had another one where this might have been involved. But you didn't get a traditional Donkey Kong game. Even a 2D one. You didn't get it I'm pretty sure on the Cube. F-Zero GX, like I said, was there. That was a great game. That game looked incredible. For some reason, the other F-Zeros never did this to me. That one, I got like motion sickness. It got like super fast, and I was starting to get nauseous. I was like, oh my god, I've never had this before. They didn't get Cold Fear, I'm pretty sure. Which on the Xbox, that was another horror game. They didn't get but like for me personally, it's a compliment system. But I think it's a little underrated in a way. It just didn't sell well. 64 sold pretty well. You know, it didn't sell nearly as much as the PS1, but and the Saturn did not. The Saturn didn't sell well. Sega Saturn, but they dropped, and then the Wii. You know, they put the motion controls in there. That one sold to the roof. They bounced back there, but then the Wii U sold like shit because they called it the fucking Wii U. People thought it was like an attachment to the Wii. What the fuck is this thing? Then they sold to the roof again with the Switch. And the Switch 2 should be selling well. And they always had their handhelds that were selling. Like, they had their handhelds, like, the DS went up against the PSP, and people were like, the PSP is going to destroy it. And it didn't happen. The PSP sold extremely well, actually, but the DS sold well over 100 units. You're not touching Nintendo in the handheld space. You could take them down in the console at times, but the Game Boy Advance sold through the roof. The DS sold through the roof. I'm pretty sure the 3DS sold through the roof. The original Game Boy sold through the roof, you know. But I enjoyed my time at the Cube. Like I said, it was one that was going to stick around for a long time. And I was doing that anyway because I didn't want to pay money. So I'd either sell them to friends, get a good chunk of change, or bring them into GameStop when they'd have deals. Like when I finally sold my first Xbox, it was to get another cube. Because they were offering $100 trading credit on that Xbox. So it was 05. That actually might have been when I got F-Zero GX and something else. But I feel like it wasn't. I can't remember. Because I was like, shit, I can just sell this thing. And I sold a couple of games. And I had enough money for a cube and a couple of games. Well, it came with the two. Maybe that was then when I did that one, because that was a great deal. I keep doing that. Getting PS2s to play Vice City, then to play Silent Hill 3. I also played Tales of Symphonia on the Cube, which is an exclusive for the GameCube. It might have ended up coming to the PS2, but I could be wrong. And then the Bat and Kato's games were exclusives. I don't know if Nintendo made those of one of their second parties. They got Kirby games as well during that cycle. And stuff like that also, the other known franchises. Did Yoshi have a dedicated game on the Cube, actually? I don't know. I'm not super into Kirby. I like Kirby games and Yoshi games, but I'm not super into them. So I don't know all of the titles. But Odama was the one that required the mic. It was like a pinball game, I believe. Like a pinball combat type thing. I did enjoy it. It's not overly expensive, but like I said, you get a Wii, and boom, you can play the fucking thing on the Wii. So Wii is also a cube. But I had fun with it. Like I said, Resident Evil Remake 0, Rogue Squadron 2. I didn't have this one originally. I did play some of it back then. So I've never completed this one. But, I had fun playing Wind Waker. I had fun with, Agent Under Fire and Simpsons Road Rage. Dark Summit. Super Smash Bros. Melee, I played a ton of. I think I first got Gladius on the Cube, actually. And then I ended up picking up for the Xbox. I got really cute picking up for the Xbox. Because, like I said, I had at least 3 or 4 cubes during its actual run. Maybe it's 3. The original, that other one when I traded in the Xbox. And then there was one in between. Because I'm pretty sure I got one to play Wind Waker, and Wind Waker would have came out before 05. So either I just got it because it was 2 free games, and I was like, screw it, I want that one. Or maybe I didn't complete it the first time, and then I did. I can't remember. Unfortunately. But overall, a cool console. It was a tall order against the PS2, and Xbox came onto the scene, and actually Microsoft comes on the scene with the Xbox, and it actually does pretty well. That was probably unexpected by Nintendo. Like, I know the original Xbox did not sell well at all in Japan, but it probably beat out. I'm pretty sure it was pretty big in the UK, and I don't know if overall Europe it was big, but I know anybody from the UK, let me know. If you like I feel like a lot of people in the UK liked the original Xbox. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking 360, but I feel like that one sold well, at least in the UK, if not a lot of Europe as well. I don't know how it did in other markets, like South America and stuff like that. And it sold well here. People were into it. But nice system. Nintendo was in the same boat as Sega. Sega would do weird shit. They'd always try weird. Let me get the microphone, the bongos, attachments and shit. Like, Nintendo and Sega were trying weird shit. Sega had the fishing rod attachment on the Dreamcast. They were doing weird stuff. They had the first VMU in there, putting the controller. You could play that as a little thing on it. It's fucking nuts. Credit to them. Sega's obviously doesn't make consoles anymore. I haven't forever. They would try stuff that I feel like Microsoft and Sony wouldn't. And I think now it doesn't even make sense to do any of that stuff anymore. I mean, Nintendo still does. You know, they did it with the Wii U and the gamepad and then the Switch and stuff and the motion control with the Wii. I think they had to think outside of the box because traditionally, a traditional console wouldn't almost do it for them anymore. They really haven't had a traditional console since the Cube. Because the Switch is a handheld and a regular console and the same thing. So it is a traditional in a way, but it still has the motion controls, still motion stuff. And the Wii U had the gamepad and stuff and also had motion shit in it, so I feel like the Cube is the last. In a lot of ways, the Cube and the Dreamcast feel like the last true video game consoles, if that makes sense. They both felt like game consoles. Even the Xbox, the PS2, you're like, oh, and that's not a knock on these systems. The PS2 just, oh, you can play DVDs. The Xbox can play DVDs. It's kind of like a PC and a console. It's got a hard drive in it. They didn't feel, I don't know. And maybe that's because Sega, I grew up with Sega and Nintendo, so it was a different vibe, you know. But yeah, Cube is a solid console. And I don't have one. I'm planning to get one because I have one on the Wii. But anyway, unless I come across one in the garage. Cheap. But yeah. Just a couple of games, exclusives, some third-party shit. I don't have a lot of Cube stuff. The Gamecube mic.